What is up, DTube, Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk about something pretty quick that came into my mind when I was looking at a kind of cool video on YouTube interviewing a guy, and he was basically talking about how the energy sector, where it's going is people producing their own electricity, and that instead of being some big players like electricity big players, instead you have millions of small players. And that eventually made me think, oh wait a sec, this is the same thing that's going to happen in the blockchain space. That instead of relying on big players, because people usually fall into that trap, so-called trap, so to say, in the crypto blockchain industry or social media industry, where they think, well, we need massive big players that can kind of support something, but eventually where it's supposed to go is, right now people are looking at like dreaming of be a big player, right? Even though if you really look at it, isn't the whole point make millions of small players, and then when you have enough small players that is in this space, the irony is then it kind of becomes, you almost become like a big player. Even though I would still say that you still in this world, when we're gonna have trillionaires, even if you make it like we'll have many tokens or something like that, you're still probably gonna be a small player like everyone, because we're probably not gonna be trillionaires, but well, who knows. But it's kind of funny because everyone's sort of on the Steam blockchain, they aspire to be like a whale or something like that, or a dolphin. But what if people can just be small players, and then eventually, when there's so many small players involved, and that when many people are moving into this space, that people that we sort of want to move people into, which is called the proof of brain space, where it's basically a person is basically using their brain a little bit every day to sort of try to get ahead in something that they're doing, and they're trying to improve daily. And when you have millions of those, it probably is possible to have millions of those eventually. When you have millions of those small players, then even if everyone looks like a small player, eventually that is really going to add up. So eventually I think that nobody's really going to care about any of these number things, I think, because it's just not going to matter, right? Because a small player will be able to support other small players, and then eventually they are stacking up their sort of influence. We are already seeing this, but just in a small scale, because it still is so early. And it sounds super cringe in many ways, like, well, that's never gonna work, like a bunch of small players supporting each other, it's never gonna work. But when you start to run the numbers, you see that it would actually work, because 1 cent upvote from one person, if you have 100 of those, that's $1. So it's like, it really does add up. It really does add up. It's just that you need people, you need proof of brain, and you need people to sort of pay attention to this space. And but then eventually you do get the ball rolling. It's just that it takes time, it takes education, not just that, but it takes that people sort of have free time to look at stuff. And we're not really there yet. I mean, because there's a lot of distractions in the world, and people are speaking different languages, using different currencies. They live at different locations. They have crisis news networks coming up talking about random stuff that sort of distracts them even more. So it's just that there is a lot of distractions going on, but when you can sort of get people, everyone sort of get the best information, education, the best software and hardware eventually, then it seems like obvious the small players are going to come, right? And the small players are going to be worth a lot, right? Because a human that is using their consciousness, using brain, that is good, right? It's very good. A person that's not a zombie, they are kind of high value, right? So that is going to add up. That's going to add up super fast. And what is this? This is like year 2. We're just in like year 2 of a period where people can like speak proof of brain and actually get amazing rewards. So look at YouTube. Look at YouTube. Now I only speak about the video category. Of course, when we talk about texts, you know, people have had a few more years for that as well, where they've been able to get amazing rewards, right? But it's like 2 years. What was YouTube 2006? It was nothing. It was, or well, it was something, but usually people have these ideas that it was better than it was. And people usually have that thing, the good old days, that they like to look at history and sort of imagine it like it is, or like it was better than it actually was. And maybe it would, like, if they would have some time travel machine or something like that, and if they would go back, maybe they would think it's cool, like for a day or so, but then they kind of want to go back to smartphones and the modern world, because what they sort of will realize is a lot of stuff that we do take for granted right now, but it's like if you would go back when people were even more ignorant, it's probably not that fun, you know, because, you know, people less educated, it's not really that fun. And that's probably how we're gonna look back at this time as well, in like 2030 or 2040, hopefully, that people are gonna look back at 2019 as like people were really ignorant then. So it's nice how we are expanding our borders of ignorance and people sort of are getting more intelligent. And I really think the proof of brain might actually be the thing that really catapults society into a new era, where people are realizing, okay, we can use this technology now to use the brain and to be genuine and to be authentic and actually get rewards from that, and try to see, okay, what is it that this world sort of needs right now. And I think this world needs a lot of eyes. It needs a lot of people that talking about what they have seen in the world, because the news are not really doing a good job with that. So millions of small players doing things, sharing their resources, sharing what they're doing, open source, this open source sort of mentality. It's really, really fun when you really do consider it, that this thing that people talk about, the whale, the dolphin, the orca, I mean, this aspiration to be big in something. What if we're always going to be small players? And that is really fine because of exponential technology. Small player is fine. Basically, if that is true, if that theory is true, that millions of small players can support millions of other small players, well, what that means is that this thing no longer applies. This like capitalism, bigger fish eat smaller fish and all that. then that kind of does not apply anymore. That if one wins a lot, then others has to lose. Well, if millions of small players can support each other, that basically means if someone is winning, that doesn't mean that someone else is losing. So, and people will be able to see much faster that something is more win-win. Because they would get the result back much faster. See that, well, we both are getting rewarded, and it sort of happens fast. If you're doing something, if you're putting in some effort into doing something, I don't know what a person is doing, but they're doing something, right? Everyone has their own sort of unique intelligence, and the more they can sort of share that, it seems like it has a positive effect on the world, right? And people will be getting fast results, seeing that, wow, this really works. This is like instant rewards and stuff like that in this Instagram age, instant reward age, instant results age, instant access age. It's kind of cool. But yeah, millions of small players instead of millions of whales or millions of dolphins or millions of dollars, or it does seem like the number game will, in the long run, if the theory is correct, that millions of small players can support each other in whatever now they're doing, because they're all sort of empowered with amazing technology, then that's kind of cool. That is kind of cool. Now, of course, nobody knows how stuff will play out, but then again, we can sort of see at exponential technology, we can see how people use it, and we can sort of measure it from a day-to-day basis and sort of see how things are going, and that's kind of cool. So you can see a general trend of what people enjoy and what actually works, and eventually, after a couple of years, you're starting to see a pattern, right? And I think we're going to start to see that in a few years, and that is interesting, right? So yeah, millions of small players instead of millions of big players, so to say. That's kind of cool if that actually can work. But it's like, it's a combination of many things, right? Seeing some other person really caring and stuff like that, seeing that they're really doing something, and seeing these different roles that people have. Like, people in society, they have like different roles, different skills, different things they're good at, and if everyone is like involved in whatever now they're doing, in whatever they are skilled at, I think that can become really, really interesting to see that play out. Yeah, that's what I want to talk a little bit about. Have an awesome day, DTube and the Steam blockchain. Bye bye.